just before 8 there, we were talking with Daryl Burke at Daryl Burke Construction about some of the things you can do to increase the value of your house. To add to that a little bit this half hour, actually, we'll talk about real estate in general around these parts. We'll spend some of that time right now with Kathy Perrett, Chief Executive Officer at the Battle Creek Area Association of Realtors, and Carrie Mathie is here too, the treasurer of the Realtors Association in Battle Creek also. Good morning, folks. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Appreciate your time today. Everybody wants to know, is my house worth more this year than last? And you are the ones that keep track of all that. In fact, I was looking at these numbers, Kathy, that you sent. And I guess the most impressive thing about 2016 over 2015 is that overall the average selling price went up, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Tell us more.
Well, in 2015, the average selling price for the year and sales was $109,301. And for 2016, it increased over 10,000. Wow. So it was 119,973.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going up.
Yeah. And of course, not everybody can sit back and say, my house value went up 10,000. But the idea is that on average, we saw jumps like this. Do you consider that impressive?
I would believe so because there's a low inventory of homes.
That's still going on, huh?
Yes, it's still going on.
All right.
And it seems to be continuing into 2017 as well.
Yeah. You concur with that, Carrie?
Yes, I do. The houses are selling very quickly on the market right now, but we definitely are in need of more choices.
That's interesting. What is behind that? And this has been like this for a while, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. There's not a lot of new developments going in.
Mm-hmm.
I think the builders have a challenge because they're going back and hoping to update homes that are, need existing things that could make it sell better.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think that with a low inventory, it becomes a bidding war.
Wow, this sounds like California. What are we, in L.A. or something? Man, actually, I'm making a joke, but I've heard about that in various parts of West Michigan where, you hear little stories. A friend of mine bought a home over in the Holland area. Bidding wars on a couple of homes that he was looking at. All of a sudden, he had all this competition for homes he's buying. This is really interesting. And what does that mean? More of us are staying put and remodeling, but there's still demand for homes that seems to be off pace with what's available. Are more people moving here or something?
Well, I would think that a lot of people want to either have a large home and want to make it smaller and move into a smaller house for retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And then also that certain price averages for a family, there's a lot of different types of family homes that they have and that they can look at. But one of the things that we talked about last year was how important it was to make sure that you can move into a house and not have a lot of things to do, because some of those things will be taken care of. And so most people buyers like to go into a house that's already ready to just put in their things and get going.
And live. We'll talk more about that when we come back in just a minute on 95.3 WBCK. We're here with Kathy Perrett and Carrie Mathie from the Battle Creek Area Association of Realtors, trying to understand what the heck's going on with the real estate market. One thing we know, the average price of homes sold in 2016 was higher. And one thing we've just been talking about, the notion that putting things a certain way in your home, making some improvements can be appealing. Because as Kathy put it, some folks just want to go in and live. They don't want to do any work, or most folks don't. I guess you see that dramatized, too, everybody's favorite network, HGTV, right? Even in the renovation shows, like those Property Brothers guys and stuff trying to get people to buy homes and renovate them, you see a lot of resistance to that, even at first. Folks just say, I don't know if we're up for that. Do you hear that a lot?
Sometimes, yes, definitely, if they're just not up to the task, or maybe they're not do-it-yourselfers.
Yeah, well, my hand's in the air.
Can get costly
Right.
to hire everything done.
Sure, but in their case, of course, they're buying low and remodeling, and of course, everybody has $1 zillion in equity when it's done. Isn't that the way it works?
Yes, that is the way it works.
Okay. So we were talking, by the way, with Daryl Burke the last several weeks from Daryl Burke Construction about ideas to increase the value of your home. And you have an interesting list, too, and there's some overlap between his list and yours. What are some of the home improvements that tend to bring a good return?
Sure, we have 5 of the best home improvements. A new deck, and that typically is going to bring 75% return on investment.
Wow.
And a new basement, or, fixing up the basement, finishing it, and that's going to bring 70% return on investment.
That's huge.
Replacement of the front door, 91% if you do steel. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, it's a sense of security to do a nice steel door, and also the curb appeal.
Yeah, Daryl brought that up, too, that some folks just driving up and seeing a modern front door are just, completely wowed by that. And it seems like a fairly simple thing. Not that, as I just said, my hand was in the air about not being a do-it-yourselfer, but that as things go, this is relatively easy, isn't it?
Yes, it's a simple thing, but it's a huge return on investment.
That is very interesting. What else?
Attic insulation. This is the largest return in your investment, 116.9% return.
Oh, my goodness. Just being able to say that you have that extra space, is that what that's about?
Yes, definitely. The extra space, and of course, the insulation would be better heat bills.
Yep, that's right. Huge thing. And this is an interesting one, number 5 on that list.
Plant a tree in your yard.
That makes a difference, does it?
It does, and I'm going to just expound on that a little and say just overall updating landscaping and making sure the yard looks as tidy outside as your house does inside.
Mm-hmm. We're back to the curb appeal thing.
Yes, definitely.
Do people really drive up? This happened to me once in my real estate history. Drive up in front of a house and say, yep, that's the one, without even going in.
Sometimes the outside of the house definitely sells it.
Mm-hmm. The first one I bought was that way for me. I had an idea of what I wanted, drove up, there it was. That's it. Going in was a bit of a formality, but it worked out. It was exactly what I wanted. All right, so those are interesting things. When we come back in a minute, we'll talk a little bit about some of the trends that's expected to be seen in real estate in 2017 with the folks at the Battle Creek Area Association of Realtors. A few more minutes with Kathy and Carrie from the Battle Creek Area Association of Realtors. We've talked about the way things looked in 2016 and some of the things you can do to increase the overall appeal of your home if you're considering selling. So now the real question is, what's 2017 going to be like? And there are some perspectives on that, aren't there?
Yes.
What's number 1 there?
Number 1, the millennials and the boomers will move markets, meaning the millennials and the baby boomers are the 2 largest American generations in history. Both are approaching the life stages that typically motivate buyers. Marriage, having children, retirement, and becoming empty nesters.
Yeah, so the millennials are going to move into bigger spaces, and the boomers are going to move into smaller spaces, probably.
Correct.
And we Gen Xers are going to stay put. Is that the thought?
That's the thought.
Okay. And where do the millennials want to go? This is interesting.
They're looking toward the Midwest.
That we've heard this before. The notion that, and Michigan does this, they graduate students from college and they say, gee, why don't you stay in Michigan? And some of them say, no, I want to go live in, some vibrant L.A. or New York or Chicago or something like that. But then they start to age and they get married and they have children, and all of a sudden they want to go back to their roots or a place that's considered to be more family friendly, I guess. Is that what's at the root of that?
It is. They're saying that they want to be, settling down where the market's more affordable. And the recent graduates are wanting to stay close now to the universities.
Interesting. All right. So some of that must be working. We've been hearing about that for years and years. So 10,000 average more in home value, home sales that we saw in 2016. That's just going to keep rocketing up, right?
We can only hope.
We can only hope. Probably not, though, right?
It does say price appreciation will slow down.
Okay.
Nationally, home prices are forecasted to slow from 3.9% growth year over year from an estimated 4.9 in 2016.
Okay. All right. Well, we have been in a situation, I think we probably can agree, where values have been going down. So we deserve a little bump, don't we? That's good to know that these things have come our way a little bit. This is a Realtor.com list, by the way, that we'll share with you at 95.3 WBCKFM.com in just a little while. So you talked about the inventory being really tight. What's the thought on that, and what would be available for sale over the course of the year 2017?
Well, we're going to be getting into our spring season.
That's the hot time, right?
That's the hot time. Although with the weather being nice in the winter,
Yeah.
people are still able to go out and see houses and view them and, see what they want to do and maybe prepare their home in the meantime.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people like to say, I don't want to move in the snow, which is the thinking there. But when the weather's been the way it is, you really can get yourself moving a little bit, probably, I would think, right? So do you think this inventory situation is going to change?
I think they're predicting that that it's still going to be low inventory.
Boy, that's what we'd call a seller's market, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Man. So what do you tell a buyer then who's in a seller's market? If they have a tight budget and they don't really want to get into a bidding kind of situation like we've talked about, it might take them a while, wouldn't it?
It could take a while. We tell them, if they see something that's right for them, to move fast.
Yeah.
Not to wait. If it's the right house, they need to get going and put an offer in and get the ball rolling as quickly as possible, too.
Mm-hmm. You see that dramatized on those shows, too, where some people can't act. They look at 100 houses and they can't act. This is not the market to sit around and wait.
No, it's not. It's very important to do it as quickly as possible and to get pre-approved and get everything you can all done in the beginning before you ever find that perfect house.
Mm-hmm. All right. And fifth on that Realtor.com list, if there was anything about the West, we were kidding about how Battle Creek seems like California with bidding wars sometimes. But the West does pull the wagon, doesn't it? What happens there is indicative of what happens in the market. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I read an article in Realtor.com, and it was talking about how California's housing went up 100%.
Oh, my gosh. The values of houses went up 100%.
And that's what was the trouble, was that a lot of people couldn't pay, that much to go up that high.
At what point do you hit a ceiling like that? I mean, house values go up enough and nobody's going to be able to afford them. That's kind of a crazy thought. But you hear about that now. I mean, if you lived in the Midwest in a average-sized home and suddenly you're moving to the West Coast, I hope you're making $1 million, because how would you afford real estate?
That's for sure.
Man. All right. I worked with a guy who lives out there. He's lived out there a while now and makes great money, but the balance is different. The cost of living is a lot different. Doesn't own real estate either. So there you are. All right. Well, you've given us some optimistic things to look forward to in 2017. So we'll check in again soon and talk a little bit about how that's going. Thanks to you both.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All right.
Richard.
Carrie and Kathy here from the Battle Creek Area Association of Realtors.